listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart. And we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse.
In the last 10 months, Stu and I have taken huge steps in putting words into action, and we've been prioritizing what's most important to us and integrating those things into our lives, into our calendars, and just being very intentional with our actions to try and cultivate our relationships, our families, our friends, as husbands, as dads, as leaders. And in that, we started the Storehouse Mastermind.
Yeah, buddy, Storehouse Mastermind. We're opening up our next house. Starts August 1st. We're taking applications through the end of July. And we only have a few spots left. There's been a lot of interest so far. So, hey, men, take action. Let's get after it. Let's have some major breakthroughs, which we've already had in our first group. It's been amazing. Go to storehouse310.com/mastermind and hit that join now button and submit that application, because you will not regret it. I promise.
You're high performing, high achieving, and an action taker. Come join a group of kinetic men and get better. Look forward to seeing you.
Get better.
See ya. Be better. Be strong. What up, my dudes?
Dude.
Take 15.
Yeah.
Hey, I am super pumped about the today's interview with one of my favorite people in the world, D Pizzle, aka Dave Perez, aka DP, aka Coach, aka Old Man, aka what else? What we got?
He is old. He's got a gray beard. But he's looking sophisticated. He's looking very.
So on that point, before Dave jumps in, you can't see it. I intentionally, in preparation for this interview, have been growing my facial hair for 2 weeks because Dave has this beautiful goatee that is distinguished, that he started growing. I think he grew it in about 2 days. But yeah. But I hate to admit, this is about as good as it gets for me, but I did it for you, Dave, because I want to be more like
You're close.
I'm choking. I'm choking. I'm getting emotional.
When I look at DP, it just makes me think about the most interesting man in the world. You know, the Dos Equis guy. Like it, I don't know, man. You have a very similar presence.
I'm experimenting. It's a prototype.
I like it. DP.
Well, hey, we're pumped because in all honesty, Dave, DP is one of my favorite people in the world. And I think his story is interesting, and we won't have time. We only have about an hour, so we won't have time to dig into the entire story. But I think we're gonna touch on some topics that are, near and dear to our heart. He is one of the founding members, the OGs of the Storehouse Mastermind. And that's just one facet. He runs a blog. He's got all kinds of coaching, health coaching. He puts out delicious recipes on the Facebook, so follow him there. But to me, Dave, and why I'm excited about this is every time we have a lot of conversations. We were roommates for a little bit, but every time we go into a conversation, I come out a better man, because you're very challenging with the topics and the way that you see things. And I just, I want to share a story a little later about your perspective, how it literally changed somebody's life in the Storehouse Mastermind. And I don't think if you were there that day, I think if you weren't there that day, the tidbit, the question that you asked that got him to where he got, I think was literally significantly life-changing for one of our brothers in that group. And I think that's just what you bring to a conversation. So I'm super excited about the interview today, and just hearing what you got to say, and growing from what I know will be fruitful and a rich conversation.
Thank you for that introduction and those AKAs. Oh, it's been good. We all three of us have something in common. That transition period has been very important to me, and it gave me an opportunity to pause. A lot of us are transitioning during not just the military people, but people during COVID, transitioning from careers and things like that. So I think it's important to stop, pause anyway in life, right? To pause, reflect on where you've been, where you're going, and are you supporting the values and where you want to be in life. So it was great sharing that time with you. It's a little over 6 months. Our second or third time around, we served together. That was a great period of my life, and a good challenge for many, many reasons, right? We got to see Italy together. We got to meet our families, and then work was super challenging. And, there wasn't a topic that we didn't dive deeply during our breaks. And so we were able to grow tremendously together. And Stu, I got to meet Stu during that period as well. Good guy, a man of ideas and creativity that I'm learning every week with him as well.
Yeah, dude.
But not as much though, right? Like not as much.
Not as much. I mean, there's limits.
Hey,
lots of limits.
That's fair. I mean, it's true. There are limits. Yeah, dude. I've really enjoyed getting to know you more, through the Storehouse Mastermind. But we always had fun together, hanging out in Italy when we were stationed there together. And I could be wrong, but I don't remember while you were in Italy, kind of all these little side projects, side hustle, entrepreneurial type ventures that you were doing. I'm curious, kind of when you started really kind of thinking about what was next, right? And started thinking about this deep dive reflection that you're talking about, and what gave you purpose, what gave you meaning and fulfillment, and why you started kind of the things that you've started so far.
Yeah, I think it's as I've gotten older, pounce on that a little bit.
Like real older, like a whole lot older.
As I've gotten older, I think naturally we become more introspective. Potentially, we start thinking about, living our life intentionally and with purpose, and our why, and all of that. And that's something that I've given thought to for some time. And I've always been, planning, right? We all do in our careers and things like that. But it wasn't during that period that I started thinking about what else outside of the military, right? The military, sort of, we had these, career maps laid out, and everyone seemed to have their favorite route to getting to where they wanted, ultimately where they wanted to go. I created my own, and I always thought strategically like that, right? Once I do this will enable me to get to here, and so on and so forth. As I laid out in some of my blogs lately, it wasn't necessarily that, I had a clear vision. I had a direction towards multiple goals, with the understanding that I would be growing along that road, and that growth and that learning will enable me to see things more clearly. And so oftentimes we do that. You've heard of the analysis paralysis. There's so many people that say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Early on, when I was enlisted, so many people, I wanted to be an officer, I wanted to put in for a commission, I wanted to do this, that, and the other. And I noticed that many just didn't. So I put forth a goal. I worked towards little milestones that got me there. And I knew that eventually, I'd figure things out. We learned in the military about the fog of war, right? So if you try to get to 100%, one, you'll constantly analyze and you never launch, and things will change automatically. I mean, naturally, right? Things will change because of the unforeseen events in life. So I get to 70 and I just launch and learn, right? But it was after that assignment that I started to get challenged in many other ways by another mentor of mine, who Sean. And I did that on purpose. I went and I was supposed to. The natural progression was to seek like a leadership position, like executive officer, and I chose to serve with him for many reasons, but not to get into the details. Is I knew that I would grow technically as a leader, as a person, because that person would challenge me that way to get even more out of my comfort. So that's where like the writing, the blogging began. It wasn't a forte. It may not be a forte, but I do it more. I naturally, you probably could tell, I talk in circles. I think that way. I think out loud in circles, and, dedicating some time to organize your thoughts and develop them is very helpful, professionally and personally. So that's kind of where I started that. And the coaching, the health coaching started later on. We could discuss that later. I don't want to take over the whole podcast.
No, you hit on a couple of things, Dave, that I love. So first, I never had met anybody or served with anybody or gotten close with anybody that was so strategically minded in their career, right? Like we'd sit down and you're like, well, have you used to be like, well, have you looked at blah, blah, did you look at the eye wall and this and that? And have you seen, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm more of kind of like a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy. Like they give me some offers, I look at them and then I make a decision and go, right. But my personality is vastly different. But what I appreciate about that, and I'm not saying that I'm much more strategic minded now than then, but what you did is you personally opened a side of my mind that saw and recognized the importance of having that kind of mindset towards just whatever it is you're pursuing, that to lay out a plan. And then what I love most about it though, is you would do that and then you take action, right? You would do something about it. And I love that. And I think that's really been a huge benefit to your transition, because like, I think I missed out on a lot of opportunities, like the Commit Foundation, for example, that I didn't plug into that. And granted, I didn't want to go into a corporate job. I knew what I wanted to do, but there would have been invaluable advice from a CEO that's giving their time to the Commit Foundation to then drive through some exercises that would help me to frame my thoughts differently. Right. And you take advantage of that stuff. Like, that's what I love about you. And, the fact that I think you're working on your 35th master's degree at this point and maybe like a doctorate or whatever, but you're always aiming to better yourself, and you're always taking action, practical action. And I think that's a huge part of anybody looking to transition into anything, is that when you take action and you do these things, and they're all relatively focused in the same direction, you're not like 180 out in your efforts, they're all focused in the same direction, but it helps that transition because it opens so many other doors and gives you options. Because at that last point that you said, you've taken the time to focus and think about it. Like, that in and of itself is huge. Writing may not be your forte, but if you sit down and do it, that exercise in and of itself could be life-changing. And I love how you highlighted that doing those things, fog of war, all that, you still take action. And I'll tell you, man, when we work together, I completely relied on you because you're an action-taking strategic thinking, action taking dude, which is kind of a oxymoron. Most strategic thinking, big thought guys are not super effective action guys in my experience, my personal experience. but I'm curious, like, what is it? Is it just like, what would be your advice for folks out there? Is it just do it? Just sit down and do it? Or are you just specially built that way? And so you're able to juggle all these things?
Yeah, I think, as you were mentioning this, I had an epiphany. And it relates to a conversation we had in our mastermind. And we were talking about our why. And John mentioned, maybe we all have like a common why. And then I had a meeting with Al later on, developing our why. And one of the things that I kind of, came to a realization is that I think all of us have a growth mindset. It's a trait that we have. So it may not be a why, it's a common trait that we have. And I think, Stu, you mentioned this book before, or this exercise is Strength Finder. I've done this Strength Finder, and I went to a course to do it. And I actually subscribed to it so you could get the whole report. And it's funny because this was just 6 months ago when I did the Strength Finder. And the Strength Finder, the top 5, of the top 5, I think it's 30 something or 40 of the top 5, 4 of them fell into strategic, right? So I think we have in common a growth mindset trait. We have different strengths that we could tap into to use that trait to our advantage. And so how do I learn the best? I think I'm a visual learner, right? Partly because of my, intellectual limitations and literacy. No, I just learned, right, that I have to see things. And the power of visualization is important to me. So one of the things that I did early on, I was leaving Spain on the heels of getting accepted for OCS. We packing out. We in the closet, and I find this little napkin or piece of paper, and in it was 3 or 4 years before I had laid out all these goals and connections that will lead to this goal and that goal and all that. I don't know.
Random question. How many times had that been through the wash cycle?
It was in the closet.
Okay. I just want to because we find a lot of things after we live together, after you wash your clothes, there's all kinds of things that are left behind. But anyways,
and that's good. Aside from metallic objects in the washer. No, what I found that it wasn't as important to constantly refer to it. I think it is useful. The fact that I did it sort of kept it ingrained in my mind. And I remember I'm an emotional guy. So I'm packing, I'm putting my Johnny Cash uniform away, my last uniform. I find this in one of the pockets or in the closet. And I call Christina, come over here. And I, kind of choke up, and I'm going through this list, and I achieved each and every one of those items in the list and more, right? So there are many times, like at Sixth Fleet and in other places, there's places where I can think better. Some of it is visualize better, like running on the plane. I think one of you guys said that before. On the plane, and oddly in the shower, I get these ideas, right? So, and I just gotta go and put it down. right? Write it down. Behind me, I invested in this whiteboard, right? So I have to like draw things out and draw these connections and lists and things like that to visualize. So I mean, that is sort of we grow, having a growth mindset is essential. One, finding your strengths and tapping into that is another. But as alluded to earlier, writing wasn't a strength. But you never know what other things you may develop in forcing yourself to do uncomfortable things. Again, that is what growth mindset is, right? But writing enabled me to organize, enabled to tap into my creativity, enabled a lot of other things, right? So one, visualize it. Two, write down steps as to how to get there. And then, go after each and every one of those steps with, a hunger, right? And with grit, right? Just go after it, right? And because when we try to, eat an elephant at once, it's just impossible, right? So that's kind of how it's been. See where you want to go, draw a map to it, and go after each step. Don't worry about, I've just seen too many people, like, I just can't, because they focus on this enormous task, right? The masters and the other things kind of happened as a result of these little steps. I just got there.
Hey, Stu, before you ask your question, just three quick points. One, your blog is awesome. Like, your writing is beautiful. And I think you have, if it was terrible at one point, your writing, you have, through writing and concerted effort, it has very clear. I was just in your blog yesterday reading through your two most recent ones, and I left I don't know if the comment showed up. It said there was an error, but anyways, it's awesome. Two, strength finders, Stu is an anomaly because they're still trying to find his strengths. And then three, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for you and Al talking about your whys, dude. Like, it just hit me when you just said that. I had thought about it previously, like even when we assigned the accountability partners, but I imagine that conversation was freaking awesome. And I'm kind of jealous. I'm like, dude, I want to like conference into every one of these calls, because I bet it was amazing. Like, you two dudes are two of my favorite guys in the world. And I bet that conversation was beautiful. Anyways, those are just some of my thoughts real quick.
Yeah, I think it's a really important piece is, a lot of us just let life happen, and we're very reactionary to everything instead of taking the time, just like you said, visualize it, think about it, write it out, plan the steps, in small action items, and be intentional about like, grabbing life by the horns and getting out of it what you want to get out of it. And there's so many people that don't do that. And I'm curious, you said that we all have this growth mindset trait that, and you're right, all of us that are currently in the Storehouse Mastermind have that. But I'm wondering, do you think that truly is a natural trait that we were just born with? Or do you think that's something that you can either learn how to do or adapt to, or over time, through the people that you are hanging out with and you're networking with and you're surrounding yourself with, help you get there? What do you think?
So I think one of my it could be a negative trait. I'm optimistic. I'm an optimist, right?
Yeah.
I just don't.
Me too.
So maybe I can't be realistic. What happened?
I said, me too. I'm the same way.
Yeah. So I say that because some people are like, well, you can't, you're not practical and all those things. Look, you can't break through major barriers in life if you surround yourself and consume negativity, either from people, from the media, from social media, from your circle. If you have those people in your circle, those are weeds in your garden. You got to pull those out, because it's strangling, stifles the ability to really optimize your growth in life. So I think you can learn it. But here's the thing that Al and I was talking about, and you probably read it in there if you actually read word for word, David. Yep, Erica probably read it for you. But it's...
Hey, man, it got read. It got read. So however it happened, I made it happen.
Noah.
Yeah, his 5-year-old.
So, one of the things that I say in the A roadmap for life is you have to know yourself. Know yourself. And part of knowing yourself is being honest and identifying your narrative. Your narrative. Your narrative is your story. And the story is told to you early on in your life. And then it is, solidified by those people who potentially initiated that: parents, neighbors, friends, school, whatever, right? Community. And more importantly, yourself, right? So you begin to believe that, right? And so your narrative could be, oftentimes a lot of times you probably read many successful people who've had like a adversity in their lives, right? So it's what they did with that. If that becomes their negative narrative, right? I can't because I was always told, I'm not a language person. I'm not a math person. I'll never do this. He just doesn't learn that way, whatever, right? Look, he grew up in the projects. English is his second language. All of those things that you begin to believe and it becomes barriers. So you got to start. So for those people who have that negative narrative, it's harder. So if you have to stop, recognize your narrative, and begin to take action through mentors, professionals, things that you're reading and consuming, communities like the ones we have, right? Who help help you visualize things from a different prism and not through that narrative that has been holding us back. Now, in my case, the narrative was a lot of, adversity that I had, but I was able to flip that or use that adversity in a very powerful way. And in that sense, Al and I have that commonality. It was different, right? And mine, losing my father and, in a pretty traumatic way, people, what people said after that, like, I'm 11 years old, you're the man of the house, you're supposed to, your dad was, if only your dad would see, your dad is seen. All these things, right, led me to say, look, he was 32 years old. This was the type of man he was. I have a responsibility to take that baton and carry it out. Our forefathers' legacy is our responsibility to take. So I always look at life as I have a responsibility for those who came before me. and I have a responsibility for those who are coming after me. So that kind of gives me a fire that's hard to extinguish, right? That's my narrative, and I'm sticking to it because it's worked, right?
It's awesome.
That's my truth.
That's awesome.
Right?
I love that, dude. Yeah, and let me let me be 100% honest here too. So, what, Stu? I thought your question was a really good question because I was actually writing down before you asked it. I was writing these thoughts down about a growth mindset, and I know it's very unusual for me to say that Stu asked a good question. Like I was about to say, acknowledge that. I'll acknowledge that up front. But I will also give you, in a departure from the norm, credit. So you two dudes are the two guys that I credit with lighting a fire under my growth mindset. Stu, I remember this conversation, dude. You exposed me to podcasts. You're riding the bus every morning from whatchamacallit, support site to Capodichino, and we were meeting in the morning. We were meeting to swim, and I'm like, hey, what are you like doing on the bus, or what are you listening to? Because you had headphones in all the time. You're like, dude, I listened to Dave Ramsey's Entre Leadership, and I listened to podcast, and I listened to Rick Warren's Daily Bread. Since that's Italy, dude. How long ago was that? That was 2012. 2012?
Yeah.
So no, that was not. It was 13, 14. It was 14, 15 time frame. Anyways, almost 10 years ago. I never listened to a podcast, and I'd never invested time into it. To this day, yesterday, as I was mowing the lawn, I crushed 3 sermons from Rick Warren because I still to this day love him. I don't really listen to the Dave Ramsey stuff anymore, but my phone is full of podcasts. That's all I listen to. My dad was making fun of me. He was here gardening. I'm like, hey, dude, what are you listening to? And he's like, oh, book. And he said, what are you listening to? And before I could answer, he goes, a podcast, I'm sure. And I'm like, yeah, a podcast, 100%. But so I credit for opening my eyes to resources and the way that you thought really changed my life. And then Dave, as I talked about in my, I had the absolute pleasure and honor to be asked to speak at Dave's retirement. And as I was reflecting on that, I was thinking back to conversations that we had, and he literally through our conversations and something that he was doing and his focus on self-improvement, it created the foundation. No lie, created the foundation for my command philosophy. My command philosophy. When I was thinking about a command philosophy, I went back to Dave and conversations we had, and it changed the way I thought about everything for self-development. And it was like overnight for me. And it was you two dudes that did that. And why I highlight this, not to fluff your pillows and make you guys think you're awesome, because you're not, but you're both amazing. You're both amazing. I love you both. But what it shows is that a growth mindset absolutely can be developed, and it's difficult to develop on your own, but you can do it. Read books and all that stuff. But if you want to supercharge it and you want to accelerate it, you surround yourself with people that are growth minded, right? The people that you, and Dave, I love how you said pulling the weeds, the weeds of your life. You get rid of the weeds and you plant some flowers, and you be around and you nurture those relationships. You are going to grow, and you're going to become more like these individuals that you hang out with. And it's 100% the ball's in your court. You make the choice. And so for me, it has literally been, you two have changed my life and the trajectory of everything. If I didn't go to Italy, I don't think I would have, Storehouse may have been a thing, but it wouldn't have been with me. The mastermind may have been a thing, but it wouldn't have been with me. Like it set the foundation for the next decade of my life, and up to this point, and for forever in the future. And so I thank you guys for that. But I also encourage our listeners, you need to be intentional about who you surround yourself with, because you will change. Your mindset will change, and you will grow, or you'll shrink, right? And you'll become a weed and get plucked. So, anyhow.
Yeah, it's funny. We've been having some conversations with people. We're opening up the next cohort of our Storehouse Mastermind, And people that, have heard the podcast or have seen the website and are asking questions, there's been a few that have been like, well, what do I get out of this? What do I get out of my payment of, $200 a month? What am I getting? And I brought that question to you, David, and you're like, dude, what are they getting? What are they offering? We need to know what they're offering, right? And what are they getting is a seat at the table with a group of men that are growing and holding each other accountable and pushing each other to better that growth mindset even more so than what we have right now. And if you go into anything with like, what am I going to get out of it? I think you're already starting off failing. I think if you go into something with, what am I going to give in value to other people? Now that forward-facing formula, I think the men in our group have that, and I think you can learn that. But I think you got to surround yourself with those type of people. What do you think?
Dave, I have a question for you for practical, and Stu, I think you make a great point, because just to highlight this really quickly, in our group, what had happened, that was so life transforming, and I'm not gonna give too many specifics, but long story short, this dude had this issue that he'd been struggling with for 30 plus years, right? This relationship, and we're all just like sitting there listening, and like, and I'm just listening at this point, and Dave offers this gem and says, have you ever put yourself in this other person's shoes? And he asked a couple just profound questions that are very simple, but very hard in application. And in that moment he did, and he shared with the group a couple bomb, like we're all like, oh my gosh, like that, you just dropped a bomb on the group with your answer. And it changed the whole trajectory, and it led to, this most recent thing of a rectification, I don't want to say rectification, but an addressing of a relationship that was potentially would have been dead for the next 30 years. And now it's at least there's something. And it was hugely important because of the question that you asked, Dave, and it led to practical application. And that leads to my question is, so let's get practical. We're talking these big ideas, and you write and all these things. And I think this stuff is very practical, but you got some side hustles going on, dude. Like you've got the blog, and you've also, I failed to mention, you have a podcast with your brother, but you're doing coaching, you're doing, you're now with H3, you've got this stuff going on. Tell me, if you don't mind, the practical applications of whether it's a transition or any transition in life, what are these things you're doing, and why?
So some of it has to do with what we're talking about. It's kind of like, finding your why, exploring, the art of the possible in your next mountain or your next season, right? One of the things that led me to begin health coaching, a lot of it is the people you surround yourself with, right? So it's a mentor of mine, former commanding officer, retired, triathlete, and always had some, issues with weight and with other health issues, right? Blood pressure, high blood pressure, and cholesterol are the common ones. And a lot of people with getting close to like diabetes, pre-diabetes as well, because of the diets that we have. So all three of us have always been into fitness in one way or another. Some of us are more developed than others, obviously, because we put into it a lot more. You on third place, Dave.
You're talking about David, right?
I'm leaning from the back. I like to see you guys excel and be so amazing up front.
So he, long story short, connected with him and two assignments ago, and saw his tremendous transformation. Right, he was 59 at the time. He's 62 now. He recently, ran his second Boston. He's like top 20 in his age group in the nation. So truly transformed his life through nutrition. And so the way we've been programmed in the military is fitness. What happened when someone, failed the tape or, the physical fitness assessment, right? They put them on FEP, on a fitness enhancement program. And that fitness enhancement program predominantly in the military, at least in the Navy, was, centered on work harder, okay? Run more, do more planks. And that's just erroneous, really. I think exercise is super important. Cardiovascularly, it's important, and it's all around important for our health. But nutrition is the key. Nutrition is the key for fueling our bodies, for tapping into the energy, the right source of energy, for focus and concentration, right? For optimizing our metabolism, and all these different things, right? You can't do all these other side hustles, all these other growth-minded things, right? Whether it's you get up in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and read, and then write, journal, and then do a podcast, and then work on this other thing. I lived with you. I saw all that, right? But you also did weekly fastings. You did, you watched what you weren't like, so extreme about it, right? Because you enjoy life. We all do, but it's you're not indulging in those things, like we are on a daily basis, and it's become our norm. So really, I learned that 3 years ago that nutrition was the key, and I ate well, but really, once I got certified as a health coach, and I started getting into the books and helping others. I found this love for it, right? And one that it ties into my passion and my why, which is to help find help others find the best version of themselves, right? Develop the best version of themselves, and also building high performing teams. That's what I've done as a mentor, as a coach, in my career as a leader, but also moving forward in these side hustles, all support these values, these goals, and my why, right? To help others. And just going back to what you said before, I grow more giving. I learn more teaching. We all do. That's the next level in the pyramid of mastery, of knowledge. You first got to consume and invest in yourself, and you continue to do, right, along the way. But then you solidify that, and you discover and experience new ways of learning as you give, you serve others, you help others, you teach, right? So,
dude, you've made some, I've seen some of the stuff that you've done with people through your health coaching program, and you've made some incredible impact to people's lives, like major fitness goals completed, health improvement, and not just like body weight, like the real numbers, and it's incredible, dude. Like I'm thoroughly impressed with what you've done. No question there, just an applaud.
Thanks.
When I tell you, I have someone here, and this is unusual, but he knows who the guest is today.
Hey, buddy.
Noah, man.
You doing, Noah?
And
Hi.
Hey.
so I'll tell you, man, I think, when I look at the way also your intentionality with your kids and your grandkids, but with my kids has been a big challenge for me because how much they love you, right? Oh, don't touch the mic. How much they love you. And this guy is no exception, right? Do you love your Uncle Dave, buddy? Yeah, he's nodding yes. But my kids respond so powerfully to you because of the intentionality of the time, and then passing on that legacy, passing on as you've said, your focus for those coming after. Well, your net is cat spray wide, not only because you have so many grandkids because you're old, but because you because you embrace, like my kids. And it's really challenged me to, again, it's who you surround yourself with. And when I look at how you talk to my kids and treat them, I'm like, oh man, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. And it's not that you're doing that on purpose. It's because I've chosen to surround myself with people that do that. Right. And so the impact is far reaching. And which is why, when I said, hey, I got Uncle Dave on today, my kids don't care who comes on the podcast, no offense to past guests, but when I said Uncle Dave's going to be on, they're like, oh, I want to say hi. And so it's a special thing.
I love your kids. I love kids in general. It's just a passion. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I won't try to come up with something. I just love kids, and I love your kids. They give me a lot of love when I'm there. Thank you for the honor of becoming one of their uncles. Their many uncles.
Well, and again, and I've said it a couple of times, but on this podcast, right? Like these are Uncle Stewie and Uncle Dave. And so I think it's also the intentionality of how you create those relationships, and you highlight, not only who you surround yourself with, because I don't want everybody that has been in my life in the past to be uncles and aunties to my kids. But when you're very intentional with it, it permeates every aspect to include who do I want my kids around. And like I look at Stu with his kids and starting, his daughter starting her podcast, and I highlight that stuff to my kids, right? Like I'm like, hey, this is what Collins is doing. And it makes the whole family better.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me hide before the time is up, because you mentioned that situation in our mastermind, right? I'm a believer and believe in bigger power that leads you to say the thing. So I don't take responsibility. But some of those things that you learn through that love, and hopefully we all graduate over time to be more compassionate, right? What I said to him is, look at it from a compassionate perspective, for a minute. And then, could it be possible that that other person that we were talking about, his environment, his upbringing, his narrative, made him ill prepared to fulfill his duties as a father, something that we're seeking to do in this mastermind, right? Be the best man, the best husband, the best friend, right? We could possibly be. We being intentional about it. We're creating an environment collectively composed by great men that have something to give, and we bring us, collectively together, right? The amount of growth is limitless there. But I told him to look at it from that perspective and put himself in his shoes, walk his shoes for a minute, And it was an epiphany for him and for others, right? And I say this, and I kind of want to close it with this, because our social media, our life, friendships, relationships, communities have become so broken in the last few years because we too busy trying to prove that we right. What was it, Stephen Covey that said, seek to understand, right? Before being understood, or something like that, right? So we don't honestly take the time to see things in a compassionate way from the other person's perspective, so that then you could have some empathy and understanding and say, okay, I see we can't agree. We on different sides of the spectrum, but I understand why. And I respect you and I love you for it. And we can move forward together. But when you don't see that, we can never even walk side by side. We can't be in the same room. We must unfriend each other.
And that's the ultimate slap in the face, is you unfriend me.
That's the ultimate pulling of the weeds.
Yeah. And Dave, I think to extend on that thought just slightly, if we did take the time to acknowledge where we're different, I think we'd also, if we took that time, we'd also be able to acknowledge in the myriad ways that we're not different and that we're the same, because the ways that we're the same vastly outnumber the ways that we're different. We just tend to focus on and magnify the differences and make them be catastrophic. And in reality, they're not. Oh, okay, so you vote Democrat, I vote Republican. Is that really the thing that makes us completely incompatible? Are you a man? Yep, me too. Are you a father? Yeah. Do you love your kids? Yes. Is that more important? Is loving your kids more important than your political bent? I think so. And if it's not, then you need to, probably analyze that. But you start digging into the areas. Okay, you have a wife. Do you love your wife? Yes. All right. These things are huge areas that we're the same. Do you prosper in a secure, peaceful neighborhood? Yes. Or if you don't, do you desire that? Yep, me too. Like, these things are literally daily bread, right? They're the things we are constantly faced with, versus a choice you make every 4 years if you vote, which the statistics say you don't. So like, we elevate these things that are truly of no importance, or not, they're not of the most importance, and we magnify them. But if you take the time to just listen to somebody and you get past the, okay, yeah, the surface level stuff, you can realize pretty quickly, hey, dude, we got a lot in common. And I actually kind of like you. But you can never get there if you don't do exactly what you said and start from that position of compassion. And, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So maybe use them accordingly.
Yeah.
Which is always a challenge for David.
100%. Because I'm always right. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm always right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's where I start.
That's where our opposite. That's where we start to polarize a little bit.
Yeah. All right. I'll work on it, boys.
Where do our listeners find out more about you? Where do they read your blog? Where do they find out about your health coaching? Where do they get connected to you? This has been awesome, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Just hitting me up on Facebook. That's where I do most of the health coaching. I use it as a platform to share, ideas, and then
amazing recipes, by the way.
Recipes, yes, stories, and then if people are inspired by any of that, they hit me up. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not going out there hustling. I don't. So it's word of mouth, and people go on, hit me up on on Facebook message, and we for the health coaching part, do a health assessment. We discuss what their goals are and what might have led to where they are, why they want to change. First question, it's interesting that we're doing this, right? My first question is dig deeply in why they want to change. Because if it's shallow, I don't even want to waste my time. Because the intrinsic motivation is not going to be strong enough, right? And then the blog is just dcperez.com. So,
and the podcast,
Straight Talk with the Perez Brothers.
Yeah, straight talk.
Nice.
And
nice.
there's gonna be a voice on there, a very deep, like raspy, manly voice. That's your brother, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, the manly man.
It's a big boy too. It's a big boy.
It's good stuff, man. Well, dude,
good mentor as well.
We appreciate you coming on, man. This was as we knew it would be a very fruitful conversation, and it just opened up my mind even more than what we've already had discussions on. So really appreciate you coming on. We'll put your links in the show notes. Guys and gals, reach out to Dave Perez. He is an amazing dude, and he will give you lots of tidbits of knowledge that will make you better. I promise. Goody, not so much. David Perez, way more so.
Yeah. Thanks, Stu.
You're welcome.
Always a good sign off, Stu. Makes people want to keep coming back. Not really, but hey, Dave, awesome dude. We'll see you in about 30 minutes for the mastermind call. But love you, brother, and just you inspire me, and I really appreciate all the ways that you challenge me to be better. And I hope I can give back to you in some very small portion in thanks. So appreciate you, brother.
You certainly do. Love you guys. Take care.
Guys and gals, go follow DP. Give us some likes and some hearts and stuff like that on the social medias. Share this, tag us, give us 5-star reviews, give David Perez 7-star reviews. If that's a thing. And go fill the storehouse.
Make it a great day, friends.
Peace.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we could continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs fill their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of building the kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.